this
Definitely.
little square. Have you seen it?
Mm-hmm.
So, this is in our Friday update that goes out every week. And so I wanted you guys kind of talk for a couple of minutes and chat about, one, if this is even something that you guys do in your classroom. We're talking about writing about reading daily. So that's one of the student engagement goals. So do you feel like you guys are even doing this? Were you aware that this was one of the school goals? How do you feel that you're meeting this goal in your class? What is working and what is not working? So I'm just opening up the dialogue for, I'm gonna set a timer for 5 minutes to just kind of chat and talk about the goal itself.
Well, are we talking about reading and then writing about the reading that we've?
Yes.
Okay, so I do that on a daily basis because I do shared reading in my class, and then I follow up with a sentence starter that goes along with that book, and then whatever they learned or background knowledge from that topic is how they finish the sentence. So I do it daily.
Okay. Do you guys embed it in your class?
As far as, yes, they have a journal that they read from every single day. It has, well, it's not a journal, they have a packet every quarter that has articles, and then they have an assignment every day to do a response to that whatever article that we happen to be on. Sometimes there's a prompt that goes with it, and sometimes it's just a response to how you want to respond to the writing.
Does it depend on grade level?
Yes.
Yeah, I feel like second grade really hones in on this, because I think in second grade, it splits up into writing, like Lucy Calkins writing, and then writing about reading. So like just two different areas, and then that's where we see behaviors pop up in second grade, because there's just another layer of writing added in.
Yes, and sometimes it's not structured enough for them. It's just when it is that very general respond to this reading, that just leaves
It's
too
not
much.
giving them any direction.
Yeah, so ways that we get around that is maybe a sentence starter that starts to fill in a portion of the prompt in the beginning to help them get going, or like fill in the blank parts. So here's the whole like paragraph that kind of scaffold it, and then they can fill in the key parts.
Do you feel like it's something that they're engaged in, or do you feel like that they look forward to, or is it kind of like pulling teeth?
I think it depends on the kids. There's some kids that really don't want to write.
Well, or don't want to read, so they don't even want to read it, and now you're gonna make me write about what I just.
Yeah, because if reading's hard, so is writing.
And I think it's different from my classroom because it's an expectation that has been put in place every single year. So if I've had a kid from kindergarten, first and second, they always know it's coming. So it's just part of the routine and structure. I feel like it'd be different from a kindergarten from second grader who's been with me.
So what do you guys typically, like you said, you run into like behavior issues, and you guys think it's because it's too broad? Like, do you think that?
I think it's just, to me, writing's like the pinnacle of difficulty for kids who struggle learning, because it just combines everything you've learned, and then now you're adding in the layer of, now read this first, and then write. It's like,
It's hard enough just
insurmountable for some kids. Yeah. And I feel like some kids with the Lucy Calkins way of writing, she kind of is just like, now go write, right? And I think some kids like that because they can write one sentence and get away with it, because like the teacher might not be checking in with them that day or something like that. Whereas the reading journals, I mean, it's, here's the prompt, or here's what you do, now you have to write and you're gonna turn it in. So.
And I'm gonna move on to the next one. So my goals for this presentation is to provide you guys with strategies for reluctant writers. to provide you guys with informal writing assignments to implement into your guys' classroom to increase student engagement as well as teacher engagement with the school goal. And then as well as like easing scheduling conflicts. I think a lot of time is we run out of time for writing. And then provide teachers with an opportunity to discuss possible ways to rethink the school and outcome assessment. So is this goal really building us up for what our outcome assessment wants, like our expectation is does it make sense? So kind of just provide you guys that opportunity to have dialogue. So I went through and I collected some data. So upon surveying second grade teachers, 67% is writing about reading daily. When asked if reluctant writers affect willingness to fit their writing into their daily schedule, 46% said yes. When asked if scheduling large chunks of time inhibit their ability to stick to the school goal, 87% said yes, so that time and the scheduling being a factor. And then 20% of teachers feel that the school goal aligns with how we assess student writing, because we do like our final writing project that we do, and then we turn it in. So 20% of the teachers feel that it aligns. That means the other 80% does not feel like that really helps bring us to that school goal. So then I analyzed some of the school data. So the all-test proficiency, and this all came from like the online school report card. So the all-test proficiency measures proficiency rate for students combining all tests. So the ELA all tests, we have a 82.2 proficiency rate. And then the state is a 39.4, so our all tests for ELA are super strong. Our IAR, the growth percentile specifically is what I looked at, so it's not the proficiency itself, it's whether or not we're growing and meeting those standards. So for our district, 22.1% did not meet our standards, with the state being at 22. 44.8 partially met our standards, with the state being at 41, so we're already a little bit higher on that partially met standards. 56.3 met, with the state being at 59, so we aren't meeting as much as the state is meeting those state standards. And then for exceeding, we're at 77.1, and then the state being at 79. So we do tend to drop off when it comes to meeting and exceeding those state standards in comparison to the state, but we are still meeting and exceeding those standards.
Is that like the whole state?
Yeah.
Combined, not?
Yeah. So what does this all mean? So the area of concern, we have a low teacher engagement in our school goal. We have reluctant writers impacting classroom dynamic, which is already kind of something that you guys talked about. Scheduling conflicts with writing lessons. So with writing taking that chunk of time, then there's increase in behaviors. We have our reluctant writers and just fitting that into our daily schedule. And then school goal not aligning with our writing assessments and those scores on our growth goals that we want to look at. So I wanted to turn it back over to you guys and ask, like, does anything surprise you of this? Are you surprised that we have a low teacher engagement? How do you guys feel about reluctant writers?
Well, I think because we put such high standards on those teachers and now seeing that the low teacher engagement is kind of.
Yeah, that surprises me. I feel like the teachers in our school, regardless of if they like support it or not, if you put something out there, they'll be like, all right, I gotta do that, right? To the point where they like overly stress out. So it does kind of surprise me, but at the same time, there's no like checks and balances in place to make sure that the engagement is happening, you know? Like,
And do you think that that like might be something that falls off, like when the day gets started
Yeah.
and you have assessments that like that
Well, yeah,
writing
cause I
block?
think
Yeah.
the reading and math assessments are to the teachers are more important than writing.
I agree. And I think for our kids with tons of minutes outside the classroom, they can't miss the math lesson, they can't miss the, you know, core reading standard instruction, so it's like, oh, I'll take them at the tail end of writing, and it's like, you know, It's not good either. But it does surprise me that our goal does not align with our writing assessments. I feel like, I don't know.
So with our like our weekly updates saying like, we wanna write about reading daily, but then we have our outcome, specifically for our writing assessment, is just a writing packet, a prompt on either persuasive or, so it's not necessarily writing about reading. So that would kind of address an outcome assessment, where you are writing about whatever you just read. But for the final writing project, I think that's kind of where it was phrased, is that final writing project, does that really align with that goal?
Yeah.
So it kind of prepares them for the ELA outcome assessment.
Yeah.
So like, what are we doing to prepare for the how-tos, the persuasives, for?
Yeah.
Are we doing enough?
Hard because Lucy doesn't embed writing assessments in her curriculum, right? I don't feel like, so, but in a school setting, you need to have a writing assessment tool, so, yeah. That is hard.
Well, I think part of, is when you're bringing up our writing curriculum, I think there's not enough. It's like some kids, the struggling ones, they need a very concrete, direct instruction on how to do it. Those are kids with all the executive functioning deficits, and so that takes so much more time, and I think they're frustrated before they begin, and I think that will cause less teacher engagement, because the numbers of our kids with executive functioning deficits just keeps climbing. And when you're trying to get all of the other core things doing, like you already said, you're going to, something has to go to the back burner. Yeah. So then adding the response to reading is another layer of writing that slows you down in your schedule. That'd be one reason why I think there might be a low teacher engagement.
On top of already, because it's almost like you have two portions of writing. So you have the response to reading, and then you have your narrative writing, your how-tos. So it's like trying to bridge that gap. Yeah. And I think that, exactly like what you said, like when we are struggling to get our students to even engage in the reading itself, and then that's like, okay, we have to move on with our schedule, then we don't get to that writing response.
And our struggling learners take so much longer to produce writing. I bet their schedule's so jam-packed, they might get
they're in
like
intervention, they're
half a
staying
sentence done,
Do you think that our students understand why? Because I know that a lot of students are probably like, why do we have to do this?
No.
So then we're not gonna get that engagement from them, because we just read it, and ask them to answer that question, then it's like, well, it's right there, you just read it.
It's almost like we're trying to bridge the gap into learning to read and reading to learn, that's what really, in third grade, what they switch over into. So it's like you're almost trying to, in second grade, teach them like, well, the purpose of reading is to learn things and to, think about your reading,
That's kind of what the responses.
Yeah, I feel like that's what the response is there for, but I think kids, they don't get that, especially kids who are still learning how to read.
Yeah.
Which is our kids.
So moving on. So this is kind of an excerpt from a text I had. So it's talking about those Common Core standards. It says, focus has shifted away from exploring your own ideas. Creativity has been cast aside. Students are being directed to copy an explicit written format. This teacher surveyed and said the Common Core state standards resulted in an emphasis on expository/persuasive writing. What impact has this had on how much your students enjoy writing? 8% said that they liked it more, about 32% said they liked it about the same, and 60% said they liked it less. So, kind of why I threw this in there is seeing that like this push for meeting the state standards and the expectations, and I know that our school is known for having super high expectations for writing, and that's affecting our students' willingness to engage in writing. so I did wanna turn it back over into a discussion. Do you think that our state standards and school expectations impact student enjoyment? And then do you feel like student engagement impacts the fidelity of our school? I know we kinda talked about that a little bit, but,
No, cause it's more of a, it's not enjoyable, cause it's more of a task.
Yeah.
It's, I have to do this is the expectation, it's not like, oh, I get to write. You don't, not, at least not in this grade level, it's, you know, higher is where it's like, oh, now you have to do this. And it's, if it's a deficit and they have a harder time writing, not even the, coming up with the words, but having to physically write something, it's a task, they don't wanna do it, and that's why we're seeing the behaviors. Cause it's both, the fine motor and coming up with the words, that's the struggle.
do you think if it was more, like, cause as said, we're pulling away from creativity, like creativity has been cast aside, do you think that if they had more, you know, controlled choice, if they had
Mhm.
more, you know,
Topics that they liked,
right,
pictures
Formats that they
to
like.
help support, to get their ideas onto paper would be more helpful, or
Mhm.
having those accommodations of having those sentence starters or fillers or whatever to help them come up with those, at least to have those accommodations to start and then fade away with those.
yeah. Right, in your guys' room?
Yeah, I mean, I think what really is impacting kids' creativity is, in our room is their ability to spell, and their output of writing is inhibited because, you know, they can't get it out, you know? So part of me is wondering, like, if we let kids brainstorm first, you know, verbally with a friend, or record it on Seesaw, or, you know, something just to like get it out in a different way, and then they can like listen back, and we can help them with their writing, maybe that would help kids more. Cause I think, like, a lot of the kids we see are creative in nature, right? Like in our OG group, if you think about it, like a lot of those kids are creative, so I don't think it's that they don't want to, I think it's that they're scared and they think they can't. So it's like, how do we bypass that wall
To have the
to help them
confidence.
be more creative? You know, and yeah, have the confidence.
And it's also like you wanna hit those state standards, like, obviously we have to be aligned with our standards, but is there a time and place to kind of meander a little bit off that road to get that engagement
Yeah.
up, like,
And then sneak in the state standards.
right?
Yeah. I would agree.
And I think some of our expectations as a district when it comes to writing, I think we need to take a look at what we're asking them to do at such a young age from kindergarten on, where developmentally, they really should still be solidifying letter sound correspondence, learning how to form letters, learning, you know, just how to string some simple sounds together. And then at the same time they're doing that, you're putting a how-to writing in front of a kindergartner. Or tell me something, write about something you're an expert at. Those are, it's not surprising to me why we get behaviors then. Because if you don't know how to do something and you're not at a small table and at a group instruction, small group instruction, or everybody is following along doing it together, then they have to fill in that time space with something. If they don't know how to write, they're gonna do something else.
Yeah. And I think that like, what teachers are expecting during that time is that, oh, to just sound it out and let things be wrong, you know, but do you feel like that even, does that help when it comes to the assessments then? Because we're grading on, you know, capitalization and punctuation and spelling and getting your ideas out, and if it's not being monitored, you know, do we
And
know?
now we expect them
Yeah.
to do that at the end.
Yeah.
I think there's something to be said about also taking it slow, like you're saying, asking these kindergartners to produce a whole writing piece, like, could we just focus on one sentence, what is a sentence? Like, so many of our kids just write, you know? But also, I think so many of our kids are perfectionists too, like, they know it's wrong, and they don't wanna move on, cause they know it's wrong, type of thing. I can think of a few of our kids that we see, like, They don't wanna, and I think that curbs their writing. They don't wanna write about the motorcycle story, cause they don't know how to spell motorcycle. So now I have to think of a new idea, you know, like I think it impacts them more than we think, their inability to write.
Should they be reading about a motorcycle?
Well, you know what I mean, yeah.
No, but like, that's what I'm saying, like, why don't we have them write something about a farm, or a zoo,
Yes.
or a playground, or something that's,
I don't think we also put enough emphasis on building their confidence first, before being like, now write. Like, I think we just throw them in and we don't take the time to build them up first, to be like, it's okay if you don't spell it, you know, it's okay, like, if it's not super long, cause that's another thing. A lot of kids think, oh, I did a really good job on this writing because I filled up all the pages, and it's like, no, none of it makes sense. You know, we're not, I don't know if we're setting the right expectations for them. They think good writing is just a lot of writing, it's not true.
Alright, so next, I pulled this from our curriculum, it's a reading sample. So again, with our expectations for our second graders is that they would read this and then respond to it. So you guys might even recognize this reading sample. So I was gonna pass this out and have you guys read through this, and then I pulled different ways that we could respond to reading that would possibly boost that engagement. So this came from one of my texts, so informal writing responses to reading passages. So I know that we do some poetry, poems, songs about what they just read in a reading passage, comic strips to describe their reading passages, a movie script or a cast, like a documentary that they can, instead of just having to answer a question. Social media posts, if they could make a Snapchat and Instagram about it. Blog post about their reading passage, so they can make like a blog post and be like, hey, so I just went and I learned about word news today and this is what I learned about. And then riddles and jokes, you know, like kids have a sense of humor. So I want you guys to take your time to read through this and then pick one of these strategies and try it out on your own, and you guys can like chat about what you guys are choosing to do and kind of just like play around with these and see if this would fit at all in your classrooms, if it's worth, you know, trying instead of what we're doing in our writing right now.
So is this open? You respond however you want, there's no prompt.
No, there's no prompt.
I love that though. That's another thing that
So
I think is hard for our kids, is there's always a prompt. It's never like this, it's always like, I don't know.
What?
And they're like, this is boring, I don't wanna do
It's
this.
boring.
Whereas if you were like, write a song about this, I feel like they'd be like, what?
Yes. Yeah, so go ahead and read it and play around with these.
I think I'm gonna do the comic strip out of my comfort zone.
Yeah. Oh. And you guys can share your samples.
Borrow.
Yeah, I have a stack. I see those coming.
So wait, if I'm doing a comic strip, don't I have to do drawings?
Yeah, you do. You're good at that.
guilty with me.
How long is 5 minutes? What? I need longer.
You guys are already writing, just coming up with the boxes for mine. So I just do pictures, that's it,
Yeah,
that's no words.
we'd have like
Labels?
what they're saying, yeah, like quotes, thought bubbles. I think they have captions, you can have captions. Or like you could make it like a dog man. Like 2.5 minutes left.
Seriously.
Yeah. You have 1 minute. who wants to share out
I'll share
first?
mine, I'll go first, Peter, but, so I did a comic strip, and it's the orange saying, I'm still working on it,
Oh, cute.
and then I'm ready to eat, I'm ready to be eaten.
I'm ready to eat. You gotta feed those oranges.
And then they're on the belt saying, I need a good cleaning, and then they're in the box ready to leave, I'm ready, me too, so am I. And then in the store, they're saying, pick me, how about me? And then they're in their fridge, someone eat me.
That's really
It's
good.
really cute.
That's what came to my brain.
Allie.
Do you know what came to my brain? Are we ready?
I don't know.
Oranges, oranges, where are our oranges? How do we get oranges to your refrigerator? Well, listen up closely to this rap generator. First, the fruit is picked when it's right from the grove, then it's brought to the packing plant, let it roll. The oranges are washed and dried and checked twice. They are packed up in pretty boxes, make it look nice. The oranges get a sticker and they're put in a box. Your store for you to buy dozen rocks. Oranges, oranges now, we got our oranges.
Wow. You should have gone last.
Really good.
I couldn't breathe at one point.
Oh my gosh.
Malika.
An acrostic poem about oranges.
Wow, it's great that we all pick something.
You're gonna step it up for you.
Oh, on a tree. Our ripened oranges are picked by fruit pickers and moved to packing plants. A, after that, they're packed on a machine with rollers and washed as they roll along. N, next, each orange is dried. G, growers want good produce. Computers check the oranges and damaged ones are removed. E, every orange gets a sticker and placed in a box. And S is for shipped. Shipped to stores and placed on shelves until someone buys it and puts it in your refrigerator.
It's really
That
good.
was really good, Malika.
That's just boring.
No, it
No,
was
it's
really
really
good.
good.
Mine didn't get a B plus.
I mean.
They're all good.
So did you guys like these ideas? Do you feel like this would be something that would help those reluctant writers, help, you know, cause you guys kind of talked about when you hand them a prompt and it kind of just like flatlines and they panic, and I feel like if this was something that we could embed, you know, even coming from like their teachers, right? So if, what,
Even if we gave them
The choices.
these ideas
Yes.
and said how,
Mhm.
you know.
And it
Yeah.
depends on where they're feeling comfortable and meeting what they need. They can have that option of picking if they're having a harder time to draw a picture about it. If they're feeling creative, they can do the rap and, you know, and then the poem. Like, I think it's just a variety of the different ways of coming up.
and it gives them that control, cause like they, when we talked about it at first, it was like, okay, well, you're telling me to have to write
Right.
about these things I don't want to, so now they have control over what they get to write about.
That
Right.
was fun.
I want to do over. I don't feel like I did
What?
justice. I'm just joking.
Tomorrow you can write another rap. What's the name of the topic?
So this was pulled from another one of my texts. It's a little bit lengthier, but it's just this right here. And this specifically talks about reluctant writers. So I was going to turn it over to you guys to read again, and then we were just gonna discuss this passage and tie it into what we just did with that. Maybe there's like 2 more minutes, that's a lot. where you're at. So I kind of just, we'll go on to talk about, you know, reluctant writers and broadening our definition for what writing is. This last page kind of talks about, expanding it to just being drawings. And if we're really struggling with a writer to get involved, if we could just get them to start drawing on a page to interact with the material. So, based off of what you guys were able to get through, did this excerpt resonate with you? Like some of what they kind of were sharing, the teachers themselves, what they shared out? And then how do you feel about broadening the view of writing?
Yeah, I really liked this because I think it really focused on kids are not gonna be willing to write unless they have the confidence. So how do we build their confidence up? It'd be by doing more fun writing. So I was even thinking like, this could be an ongoing morning work activity. You know, teachers so often have just like math problems on the board for kids to do, but like they could come in and all week they could work on a writing of their choice, right? Like Monday is just, here are your options, pick one, you know. Just something fun to start the day with, but also like secretly is sneaking in some writing, you know.
Yeah.
Or some kids might just draw, and that's fine too. It's just, I don't know. I think it's hard because a lot of kids don't wanna come to school because it's always hard. Like, what if we embedded some fun in there? And at the same time, it could open up the creative channels to writing.
I love the drawing
Yeah.
because, and on a personal note, it resonates with me because my kids, a couple of them are really into the Diary of a Wimpy Kid books, and would take their notebooks they had left over from school and start making their own books like those. Like my one would just like speak in that exact same tone and write like a journal every day like that. The other ones loved all the Captain Underpants, Dogman books, so they would basically do just comics and just fill it with, but it's telling a story where it's not writing paragraphs in the sense that they're used to, but it's putting your thoughts in a cohesive way, which is what writing really is, which most kids struggle with, and that's why they're reluctant to write. So it's getting it out in a way that makes sense to you. That putting it in paragraph form will come later. And I do that too, like when I touched on the kindergarten kids who are having to write these how-to books, they just really need to be drawing, you know, a picture. The little girl I was helping wrote, she wanted to write about how to make a s'more, and then so now she's 5 and she's trying to spell marshmallows, and so the whole thing like derailed because it could have just been draw a picture of how you make a s'more. Instead it was, dug her heels in because now I have to spell s'mores, marshmallows, like chocolate, graham crackers.
But you're so right, like writing doesn't start pencil to paper, writing starts up here. So like, are we teaching the kids this part of writing, or are we just focusing on like this part of writing? So true.
Which kind of bridges us, so this just kind of talks about different ways that we would give assessments, right? So instead of giving like a specific detailed prompt, if we're just giving friends, hopes for the future, role model, special gift or possession, like making it more broad, but then allowing them to use other formats, you know, and then that would kind of just bridge into, is there a way for us to kind of bridge the gap of these working and meeting our standards, and how can we address our school goal, and, you know, like, is there any, like, to sum it up, what do you think can be done to kind of help bridge this gap?
I don't think it needs to be so strict and structured. I think we need to go this route and give them more of ownership on what they're writing and how they're gonna produce it, so that the end result gets to writing paragraphs. Like, in this building at least, let's focus on what they're interested in, not giving them the prompt or this is what you have to do. Leave it up to them and then build from there.
Yeah, I think you're right, it has to start in this building. because this is where
This
the
is the
building
path,
blocks
yeah.
start, so like, we do have to start with getting kids on board with writing first.
And even like in this, you know, she had one of the students just type
Yeah.
their response and autocorrect things.
I don't think we have to be so by the book with
Mhm.
writing, but I also know a lot of teachers would not be okay with like an upheaval, so I think it could be just like embedding small things, right?
Yeah.
Like simple,
Morning.
yeah, or like put it
Or-
in your work to complete folder, and anytime you have downtime, hey, take out that comic book you're working on, hey, you're
Mhm.
working on a rap, take out that, you know, like, it could just be that.
Right.
And make them feel validated for what they're doing, instead of saying, oh wow, I like that, you're doing a piece of work, like, be more engaging and,
Yeah.
like, thrilled about it, like, oh wow, really, I heard, you know, I saw that you're writing a comic book, and I like how you did this, and, oh, I would love to hear more, to
Mhm.
get them to have that confidence to keep building
Cause
off of
that's
that.
how it started. Even think about like our music talent show, imagine if you had a talent show every Friday, and the kids who wanted to could share out to the
Comic
class,
strip,
their comic strip.
yeah.
Or, hey, I made this
A
poem.
joke.
Yeah,
Little,
yeah,
yeah.
I don't know.
And the kids that aren't ready to put pencil to paper, and they, you know, like, let's say some of our kids were significantly delayed by multiple grade levels in writing, what if they were, doing their response, recording? They were making a voice recording of what they thought about it, and then eventually you learn how to put that's still sequencing your thoughts together in a cohesive way, and then you let them listen to it. How does that sound? Is there anything you wanna change? That's editing, so go back, re-record, you forgot something, you can fix it. Those are,
The foundation.
yeah,
Oh, we're so fixated on the paper pencil, I think that's a really great idea.
That's it. Thank you.
that's it?
Yeah.
That was fun.
Thanks,
That
Fran.
was.
Thanks,
You want these for souvenirs?
guys.
Well, let me frame it first.
Yeah.
I'll mat it,